Boxing King Media, delighted to be joined by Mr. Colin Hart and Jeff Powell from the Mail.
Thank you. Yes.
You always want that, I always get it in. And Mr. Colin Hart from the Sun.
Absolutely, yeah.
As you just said, they're Anton Deck, but I think the younger and better looking versions of Anton Deck.
As Colin says, Mutton Jeff.
Hey, you wouldn't know, you're too young. You're two music hall comedians.
From the way back on vaudeville time.
You guys have seen fighters, carry on longer than they should have done over the years. You've probably seen it so many times. What do you make of this fight in the sense of, is the timing right? Because I've seen a lot of people now changing their minds and picking Derek Chisora to win on Saturday. I spoke to Usyk yesterday and he said to me, Derek was the hardest puncher he's fought and Joe was the easiest fight he's had from all the British fighters he's fought.
Well, personally, I'd prefer this fight not to be happening. I think neither of them should be doing much more of this. Both have taken a lot of punishment. Joe's very easy to hit, although he's had fewer fights. And he was banged around by the giant panda, Mr. Zhang. And Derek's taken a lot of punishment down the years. 48th fight, 13 defeats. He had his checkout fight, his big money fight, which Tyson Fury granted him at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Why is he doing this still? That was a lot of money. Clearly he just enjoys and loves it, but sometimes you have to be saved from yourself. And he should have saved himself from further punishment. As for Joe, I think his race is run. The talk of either of them being back in the mix for world title is fantasy island. They could do without it. I'm sure they'll bash each other around like crazy, and I'm a bit concerned about the extra punishment they're both going to take.
Do you agree with Jeff?
100%. I've already written in the Sun after Joe got knocked out by Zhang that they should retire. I think Chisora should have retired long ago, and certainly after his fight with Fury a couple of years ago, he took a terrible belting that night. He's got nothing else to prove. He's been a British champion, Commonwealth champion, European champion, fought the world title twice. He's 40 years of age. He should have the good sense to realise he can't go on forever, and he should, I just hope, win, lose or draw against Joyce, he doesn't do it anymore.
Who wins and how?
Probably Joyce, and I hope it's quick. Derek himself is saying that it won't go past 5 rounds. It would be the best thing for both of them if one of them knocks the other out as quick as possible. I guess you'd have to say marginal youth and less punishment, only 18, 19 for professional fights, less punishment down the years. You'd have to say Joyce would be a marginal favourite.
Well, this fight is like two six-wheeler trucks colliding.
Good analogy.
Joyce should win because he's less shot-born than Chisora, although that's not saying a lot. But neither of them are going anywhere, whatever happens.
Usyk tells me he's going to carry on fighting, and obviously you guys have just talked about Chisora not stopping, but Usyk is saying he's going to carry on fighting beyond Tyson Fury. He was joking, but I don't know if he was or not, but he was saying about MMA, talking bare knuckle. He's basically saying he loves fighting and he's going to carry on. Should he pack it in, or what do you think?
Well, the difference between Usyk and the people we've been talking about, he hasn't been knocked about. He's so clever, he doesn't get hit that often. So, yeah, he could go on. I mean, he must be a very wealthy man now, but who knows? Most fighters go on and on and on well past their sell-by date, because if they stop, they miss the adulation. And the other reason most go on too long, because they haven't got any money. They've spent it all.
Well, Usyk is currently the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. He's a fantastic technician. He knows how to avoid trouble, as well as he's able to find the angles and unusual places in which to inflict it. He should have been given a stoppage over Tyson Fury instead of Tyson being given a standing 8 count, which is a relic of days gone by. He's clever enough, he's fit enough, he's strong enough, and he's certainly mentally alert enough to carry on doing what clearly he loves. But of course he also has the other great motivation of fighting for Ukraine in these desperate times for his country. So he's got plenty of reason to carry on fighting for that. But I don't think we're talking about anyone close to being pound for pound fighter in the world with Joe and Derek.
Is Usyk an all-time great? And if he is, where would you put him in that list, both of you?
Well, because of my longevity, he wouldn't
the
have,
best people to
he would not have been, in my opinion, Muhammad Ali. He would not have beaten George Foreman. I don't think he would have beaten Mike Tyson in his prime. So that's three. I mean, he's a good fighter, brilliant technician, but he's not a great heavyweight.
He's certainly he's not in with Ali and Foreman and people like that. Tyson would probably have knocked him out too. Yes, he's the he can't be more than he is. I think he's the outstanding fighter of his generation at the moment. He's the unified and recently undisputed world heavyweight champion. So he has his place in history. Is he a better fighter than Lennox Lewis, who was the last undisputed heavyweight champion? Probably technically better, and Lennox was bigger. So there's toss-up calls down the rankings, down the years, but I don't think we can begin to compare him, as Colin says, with the likes of Muhammad Ali.
I forgot to mention Joe Frazier. I don't think it would have beaten him either. Well, I mentioned Foreman, but you know.
By the way, I don't think he'd have beaten Joe Lewis either.
That's your time.
Even my longevity.
Well, I've got a last question for you. You guys have seen so much boxing over the years. Do you remember the first time you both met, and what boxing event was it at?
Both met. Oh, no, we met long before Jeff started writing about boxing.
What was the first boxing event you met at? What was the first boxing event you guys?
I really came to meet Jeff when Tyson was world champion. I think that's when Jeff started his regular as boxing correspondent of the Mail. Before then, Jeff was one of the country's top football writers. But so we're talking about the 80s, a long time. Both of us had different coloured hair when we first met.
Oh, you both still look your most. You remember that time, Jeff?
Yes, actually, I was in the same hall as Colin, although I didn't have contact with him. Did you do Sugar Ray Robinson here? Do you go back that far?
I was at school.
Yeah. Oh well, okay. I thought perhaps because my father was the scaffolder got me into. I was caught when he knocked off work at 1 o'clock on the Saturday. Put a brick in the door at the back, walked me past Sugar Ray's pink Cadillac, which was parked in his waste ground there, and sat me on his knee.
Who did he fight?
Sugar Ray. He was beaten by a very famous British fighter.
From Wolverhampton. Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Let's be accurate. Leamington.
Leamington. Yeah, I can't think of his name. But
Spa.
he rematched him within a month.
Yeah, and
Randolph Telpin, that's it.
Yeah, and of course he lost the rematch immediately after.
It's amazing that in this day and age how he rematched him within a month, and then I think they fought again, didn't they? It doesn't happen anymore.
It was 63 days, to be precise.
Well, Joe Lewis fought every month. I mean, it's become an absolute nonsense.
I'm just curious to know from your insight here, because you guys saw these athletes fight 40, 50 years ago. They were fighting every month. Why can't the fighters do that now?
Oh, no. I mean, well, that wasn't clever, fighting every month, but they didn't fight that often. I mean, let's face it, when Floyd Patterson was world champion and he fought Johansson, he only had one fight a year. It was a year difference before the return.
But they did fight. Most boxers fought more frequently.
Ray Robinson, for example, he was fighting regular.
Yes.
On tours, wasn't he?
Yeah.
There's a big difference. They weren't fighting for millions like they are today. I mean, these fighters in the, when I first started, even in the 60s, but you go back to the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, they fight so regularly because they weren't getting big money.
What kind of money would somebody like Sugar Ray Robinson be getting? Do you guys know?
Well, actually, the top men actually got reasonable money. You can go back to some of the old guys, like pre-First World War, maybe early in the turn of the last century, and there were sort of $1 million purses around and about for some of the bigger
$1
fighters.
million in them days?
No.
Yeah.
The biggest sensation was as late as 1971 was 2.5 million each for Arley and Fraser at the Garden. It was a sensation. This was 71. But talking about the 1940s and 50s, they didn't go anywhere near $1 million.
Well, perhaps let me rephrase that. They got the equivalent of million pound, $1 million
Oh, we're
purses.
talking about,
Yeah.
what
What
$100,000
it
was worth,
for them.
in the 40s and 50s. That was enormous sums of money.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, so they did have money, and they too fought for the love of it, but they fought more often, and not all of them ended up as badly damaged as some of the people of recent times. I mean, we can talk without going into too many character assassinations, but there are great champions from the fairly recent past. You can hardly understand a word they say.
Unfortunately, that's true. Not so much today like it years ago, because let's face it, the medical side of boxing has improved considerably, and these people now have regular scans to make sure they're not haven't got problems with their brain, so they're better looked after in this day and age. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, years ago, the heavyweight champion was Bruce Woodcock, and I'm talking about the 1950s. And Freddie Mills was the light heavyweight champion, and he fought a guy called Joe Baxley, who was a big American heavyweight, and got slaughtered, got knocked out. 3 weeks later, he was fighting Woodcock for the British heavyweight title. That would never be allowed today. When a boxer gets knocked out in this day and age, he's not allowed to spar in the gym for 6 weeks, let alone fight. So times were different.
Actually, if we don't ring the last bell on this one, we're going to need a brain scan at our age.
Well, let's see what happens. Always a pleasure speaking to both of you. I love gaining knowledge from you
pleasure
guys.
to do
So
it. Always.
we'll catch up soon. Thank you very much, Jeff and Colin.